It's time to reach into your LACP bag of tricks. I know some of you might be thinking, I didn't even know I had an LACP bag of tricks. Well, that's what this whole nugget is about. We are going to examine and learn the additional LACP features that can help or hurt your efforts. Now, why hurt? Well, because anytime you add complexity, anytime you add features and capabilities, you also introduce the opportunity for misconfiguration. So we want to make sure that we set these up and we set them up well and that you're aware of them. So when you get to troubleshooting ether channel environments, you know what to look for, right? So here they are in no specific order. Enabling LACP fast, which is your ability to improve the convergence time of your ether channel failover. By default, LACP is designed to send an LACP DU every 30 seconds. And that means that it will only detect a failure of the other side, if it misses 3 of them. So that's a hold down timer or a failover timer of 90 seconds. That's a long time in today's world to have an issue and not react to it. So LACP fast will allow you to decrease that timer from 30 seconds to 1 second as long as both sides support it. Minimum link, max, I'm thinking as I'm staring. Let me do this. I'll give you an overview of all of these, and then we'll configure them one by one on our switches. Sound good? Cool. So minimum links and maximum links is how many links minimum or maximum are in the port bundle. Because of the power of 2 load balancing, you end up with inefficiencies if you don't bundle 2, 4, or 8 links together. So you might decide, you know what, if we drop down to 3 links, I just want to, tear the whole ether channel bundle down. Or we drop down to 2, I just want to, I want to disable the ether channel. Thus, you can go in and set a minimum length. Maximum lengths is how many maximum connections you would want in there. Maybe you only want 4 connections, but you want to have a 5th or a 6th there just in case one of these fail. Well, that's a great use for the max bundle because if you've got, let's just say 3 because it's easier to draw right now. You've got this 3rd one here, but you don't want to include it in there because then you go beyond your power of 2 load balancing. That's, again, what ether channel is optimized for, is using powers of 2. If you do not use a power of 2, you're going to get unoptimized load balancing, if that's a word, between all of those connections. So you can set the maximum bundle to 2 in this case, and this one will be considered at that point a hot standby. So if one of these fails, this one gets introduced into the bundle, but if that comes back online, it's removed. Kind of cool, right? System priority allows you to choose which one will be the master switch of the LACP pair. And that is the switch that determines just how many links are going to be included in that ether channel bundle. Maybe one side's configured for 3 links, one side's configured for 2. Well, who says what's what? It's whatever one is the master switch. And it's just like spanning tree, lower is better. And you see my little notes that are on here, lower, right? The lower your priority, which is kind of counterintuitive, the better that you are. The interface priority deals with which one will be considered in the bundle. So for example, we've got LACP max bundle right here, right? Let's say you've got that set to 2 interfaces, 2 maximum, but you've got 3 links. Well, who says which one of those 3 links end up in the bundle? Well, that's the job of the interface priority. It's going to jump in here and say, well, these 2 are a lower priority than this one, so that becomes the hot standby. Or these 2, it's whichever, however you want to configure it. That's what the interface priority is all about. So as you can see, it's a bag of tricks. You get that feeling, right? It's kind of things that you may not need to use ever, but it's things that you should be aware of for those special circumstances. And when you're troubleshooting, you're like, what is going on? Knowing that these things exist will be another arrow in your quiver, right? So what I'd like to do is I want to set up the LACP environment. Now, we have been using, let me just get to the network diagram here if I can grab my mouse. We've been using this topology the entire time, which I'm making available to you from CBT Nuggets so that you are able to bring this up and try out some of these commands on your own, right? So if you haven't, click the lab link. What I'm going to do, as a matter of fact, I've got it loaded right here, but I do not have LAC. The way it's configured out of the box is just 3 switches connected together. So I'm going to go in and configure LACP, but because I've done this a number of times, I'm just going to do it off-can. What I'm going to do is get a little notepad. Whoop, I got to stop using my keyboard shortcut. Get a little notepad file here, and I'll type in the commands I'm going to put in there and then paste them into switch 1, 2, and 3. All right, there we go. I typed in manually what I think all the commands will be, and just if you want to take a snapshot and create that yourself, or just want to do it on your own, feel free. But what you can see here is I've got the trunk configuration on each one of these switches, and then on each switch I set up an ether channel. All the ports are the same. I don't know why I did this. Maybe just because I'm crazy. Switch 3 ended up using a different set of interfaces from switch 1 and switch 2, and that's fine. It's very real world. So we'll take this switch by switch and get it pasted in. Oh, sure enough, problem with typing commands manually is I forgot the dash, so we need to squeeze the dash in each one of them. There we go. Try that one more time. All right, cool. There we go. We've got ether channel up and running on all the switches. They're still coming active as of right now. So now I can just do some basic show commands. Let's go up to switch 1 just because he's number 1. He's at the top. I'll do a show ether channel summary. And I can verify that I've got LACP configured, port channel 1213. All these are bundled in the port channel. I'll do a show spanning tree, which allows me to see which interfaces it's actually using. And you can see that port channel 12 is the root port. So that would make switch 2, again, the root bridge. Port channel 13 is just a designated port. It's currently in the learning state, which tells me these are the ones that it's actively using to reach the other side. So let's bring it back to the LACP features. Now, I want you to be aware that when this feature came out, LACP Fast, it was considered a premium feature. That is, only the high-end switches supported it because, again, rewind time, when you move a timer from 30 seconds down to 1 second, that has an increase on CPU, it has an increase on network bandwidth. And back in the day, that was a pretty big deal. Now, I will tell you that in today's world, not so much a big deal. Ethernet will barely even register, sending a little LACP DU once every second versus once every 30 seconds. That said, our emulated environment does not support LACP fast. You'll see it in the show command, like it's slow or it's fast, but because it was considered a premium feature, it was not included in a lot of the platforms, one of which we are emulating. The other command that's not included is the minimum links. Again, a feature released at a later date. So let's look at the ones that are included, and I want to show you something that's pretty cool that you can do with these commands. Let's take a look at the port channel between switch 1 and switch 2, which is actually port channel number 12. Now currently, those two are bundled in ether channel configuration. But when that maximum interfaces command, this one right here, maximum links, when that first came out, it was actually introduced as an alternative to spanning tree. Watch this. I'm going to bring up the switch 1 configuration. Do a quick show IP interface brief, and we'll do include ports. So we just can... Oops, forgot a capital letter there. Port, so we can just see the port channel interfaces. There's port channel 12, 13, they're both up. I'm going to go into global configuration mode, focus in on that interface port channel 12, which is between switch 1 and switch 2. And I'm going to type in the command LACP and hit the question mark. Notice that there's actually two commands that are supported here. Now, by the way, if you do have an iOS version that supports that minimum number of interfaces, meaning if it goes below this, I want you to tear down the whole ether channel, it'll be listed right under this same configuration. It'll say minimum bundle. So I'm going to say maximum bundle, and we're going to actually say 1, the maximum number of ports to use in this port channel. And I'm going to also enable the feature that you see right above it, LACP fast switchover. Now, this is not something that you'll see on CCNP certification or anything like that, but it's a feature that's good to be aware of because it allows you to bundle multiple interfaces together for the sake of redundancy rather than just load balancing, including both of those in there. So this is actually sold, if you will, as an alternative to spanning tree. It allows you to have faster failover than spanning tree gives you. Now, just so we're consistent, I'm going to drop over to switch number 2, go into interface port channel 12, and we'll do LACP, and we'll do that same command, max bundle 1, and we'll do LACP fast switchover, which enables, and again, the feature is actually called LACP one-to-one failover. If you Google it, you'll see those two commands right in there. Now, I'm going to drop back out, and let's do a show, actually, let's jump over to switch 1, just so we've got the one that's finished all the negotiations. We'll do a show ether channel summary. And what do I see there? Look at number 12 right here. Port channel 12. It shows it is S, which is a layer 2 port channel, not layer 3. It's currently U, which is in use. It's working. But notice on the right-hand side, we have gig 0/0, which is in the port channel, but this is a new one. Gig 0/1 is H. It is considered a hot standby, by the way. This is an LACP only feature that allows it, if gig 0/0 is disconnected for any reason, it detects it and flips over to the hot standby. Now, why did it say as a hot standby? You guessed it, because we said the maximum number of links in here is 1, which is actually where that command was originally introduced. An alternative to using spanning tree in some environments that need that super fast failover. Now, anytime you introduce a feature like that, it leads to stuff like this. Like, what if one side wants the higher numbered interface to become the in-use link and the lower number interface to become the hot standby? Which one wins? I mean, which switch wins? Well, that's where we end up with the system priority and the interface priority. Two features that are needed anytime you introduce a feature like this that allows you to say, well, let's have one of these just kind of stay on the side as a hot standby. So check this out. I'm going to bring the switch back into the picture, and I'm going to do a show LACP, and I'll hit the question mark. You can see one of our options is system ID. All of the LACP switches have a priority of 32,768. Now, that's familiar. Where did we see that before? Spanning tree, right? Spanning tree, root bridge election, 32,768. That's the bridge priority. And you combine it with what? The bridge MAC address to create the bridge ID. Boy, it seems like LACP borrowed a lot from Spanning Tree. It does the same exact thing with their system ID. So you end up with this concept called the LACP master switch, which is the one that is just the king of the hill. It's the one that says, well, I want this one to be the active port and this one to be the hot standby. And if this one is the lesser switch, the slave, the non-master, right? It's just like, okay, you're the master. I'll take whatever you want. So if you want to adjust that, and I want to make sure, for example, in our example right here, that switch 1 stays the master. I can go into global configuration mode and type in LACP, and you can see it's a global command, system priority, and I'll just say 1, right? Really low. So now when I come back here and do a show LACP system ID, it's adjusted that priority to 1 to essentially say it's going to win that election. Now, notice when we do that, it's going to reset the LACP neighbor relationship between the two. So this is definitely something you want to do in the off hours. On the port priority or interface priority side, this allows you to go in and elect which interface would become, like for example, we just did it. I'm going to jump back here and do that same show LACP or show ether channel summary, I should say. Gig 0/1 became the hot standby. 0/0 became the one that's in the port bundle, right? So what if I wanted to flip that? Well, that's where I can go in. Well, first off, let me just do a quick show LACP. Let's just do, man, I'm blowing stuff up here. Show LACP. Let's do neighbor. And you can see one of the things that's transmitted with the LACP port priority is, or with the LACP packet, is the port priority. So I can see each one of these interfaces has a default priority, again, very similar to Spanning Tree, of 32,768. I see that we're sending slow LACP DUs. I see that we're both in active mode, and neither one of these switches is set into passive modes, right? All of that information can be seen from right here. So if I wanted to modify it, let's just do go back to that show interface summary, and I want to go into interface GI 0/1 and say, no, I want you to be the active one and the other one to be the hot standby. Well, that's where I can do the LACP port priority and lower it. So we'll set that guy to 1, bail out, and we'll do that same show command, show ether channel summary. Hang on, give it a sec. There we go, reset the interface, and now we flip the ports. You notice that it has come up and said this guy is now the hot standby. This guy is the one that is included in the port bundle. So as you can see, it definitely feels like an LACP bag of tricks. And you can see it's one of those things that you can run into when you get into an advanced troubleshooting situation. You've now seen some of the LACP features that can help or hurt your efforts. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.